Did you ever hear about the burning that happened way down in Natchez, Mississippi town? Did you ever hear about the burning that happened way down in Natchez, Mississippi town? The old building got the burning down my baby lane on the ground. Charlotte Jones was there, Blue Eyes was there, Rosa May was there, Louise was down. Did you ever hear about the burning that happened way down in Natchez, Mississippi town? I stood back, was looking, and the old building done tumbled down.
So, Howlin Wolf, man.
Howlin Wolf, the actual blues man, not some legendary specter or ghost or legend, right?
No, just Howlin Wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, why we listen to Howlin Wolf
Yes.
just now?
Why did we?
Because Doom starts right there in the blues.
Okay.
Mid-50s. This was recorded in 1954.
Right.
That's when a lot of this great blues music was being recorded, and a lot of people who wouldn't otherwise have heard it, right, are getting exposed to it.
Right. Well,
Okay.
I just kind of saying that to you is like, what is this like listening to for the first time?
Yeah,
You know?
that's something that mournful and emotional. It has a dark, theme and tone, but there's kind of some nostalgia and bittersweet.
Well, yeah, because it's all about it's heartache and pain and
Yeah.
the sufferings of the times.
Yeah, but
and a lot
kind
of
of-
women betraying you.
Oh, straight up, like bloodthirsty betrayals, right?
Yeah.
That's why you sing the blues, because some shit went
Exactly.
bad.
It's lasted that long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we got these blues guys recording this stuff, and not all their tunes are like that, but
Sure.
blues influences rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes.
So these rock and roll kids are hearing these records, and they're hearing Chuck Berry and Little Richard, and that there can be like this rapid fire attack that you do with this music, and it's mixed in with some gospel, and you get rock and roll. And these kids in the UK start hearing this in the 60s,
Right.
in the midst of all this change and
There's a lot of upheaval.
a lot of upheaval and all
Yeah,
that things.
especially we're
happening.
we're consumed by our upheaval in the '60s. The UK was going through
Straight up, yeah,
the same thing.
Like all of Europe,
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so anywhere where there was a democratic country, there were people asking questions,
Right.
and these big cultural shifts, civil rights, and then the anti-war movement,
Women's liberation movement.
women's liberation,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
All these things, the anti-government movement
Yeah.
started spinning out of these things, and all this art and music as a response to that
Right.
in culture, in political events that are happening right there in front of everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these guys, they pick up an electric guitar, they start playing blues. They're listening to Howlin' Wolf,
Playing traditionally
Rob- yeah.
at first.
and
Yeah.
then they start to get this sound out of it. This crazy, distorted sound. They're playing with the fuzz. They're playing with the amps, the
Yes,
electronics.
yeah.
They're cranking this stuff up. that reflects more of how they're feeling emotionally with the times, right?
Now, let me ask you this. Do you think that was because we just listened to that record, and it sounded fuzzy just because the recording at the time was probably not as high fidelity. So it does have that sound. So in trying to recreate the low fidelity recordings, they backed into that fuzz. Yeah. Because, just like, how do I recreate that? And it's like, well, what if I really
Yeah, right. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
That they kind of pick up on what may be a bug, but they turn it into a feature, right?
Absolutely.
That guitar sounds a little more distorted on the recording.
Yeah.
But he plays it with this aggressiveness that gives it a kind of a ring and a buzz.
Yes,
and
it cuts very quickly.
You add it with that lo-fi tech,
yeah,
recording it with that, and you play it back on your whatever kind of system you got at the time back at the house.
Yeah.
And that's what you're hearing. You're like, oh, man, how do I get my guitar to do that? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of trial and error pretty much at that point.
Well, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and they come upon it.
Right.
And then you have your real adventurous players who just like, let's see what it can really, let's see turn this thing upside down.
Yeah, we're gonna get into some of those people today.
Yeah,
we're kind of moving pretty fast here, but we just want to start this sound doom metal. Let's start it with the blues that started in the 50s, and then let's move forward 10, 15 years or so,
right,
into the late 60s when things are crazy all over the world, and there's this artistic movement and this anti-establishment movement that's happening, and rock and roll is very much, a major part of that. It's feeding into it and from it, the music and the counterculture reaction that's happening at the time.
So what we're about to listen to next, how were these kids listening to this? What we just listened to?
Oh yeah, so
they were jamming this,
right.
Basically.
So let me get that out. What we're going to hear next, real quick.
Okay, let's do it.
How are these rock and roll kids playing the blues? So let's get into Blue Cheer. So this is their 1967 demos, and these guys were trying to outdo everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And in the sound and how they wanted to play rock and roll to express how they're feeling at the time.
Right.
This turbulent, crazy time.
Right. Blue
Cheer is often cited as one of the bands that invented heavy metal because of the way they played rock and roll.
Okay.
They played it blues, real psychedelic, really loud, and really heavy. Lots of low end and fuzz on the guitar.
Right.
They started to develop this new sound.
Okay.
This new way of playing the blues and rock and roll in this very kind of distinct way.
From the heavy use of fuzz.
Yeah. And with the aggressive attack on the guitar.
Right.
The guitar sound starts to get more aggressive and heavier, and the guitar moves away from being sort of a supporting instrument, and now it's the lead thing.
Sure, yeah, because those blues bands, there were 4 guys all just kind of jamming.
That's right.
And then, maybe a verse or two, and then they jam out for a while.
Yeah. And the lead guitar starts to become a really prominent part.
Sure.
Playing like psychedelic solos. You're playing these old blues riffs, these blues solos, but you're adding a lot of distortion and effects to it. Playing on these massive amps.
Well, you stretch them to another place, because you can do more with them. You can bend them differently. You can make them phase in and out. Yeah.
Yeah. So these kids are listening to these blues, and they're playing on these stacked amps, as loud as they can, and they're trying to do something that reflects how they feel their blues at their time.
Sure.
Blue Cheer recorded the Summertime Blues here on their demo in '67, and it kind of became their song, their single.
Okay.
They were a hard band to record, and a lot of labels didn't want to touch them because they were so loud.
Right.
And it's
hard to capture that.
Hard to capture that in a way that
stop redlining all the equipment and all the
Yeah. So we get from the blues into Blue Cheer here. These kids are playing rock and roll blues, heavy, fuzzy, stacking their amps, and this is going to get us into doom metal in just a few years.
Okay,
so let's check out some Blue Cheer.
Cool. Let's do it.
the summertime blues. Well, my mama and papa told me, son, you got to make the money. Well, if you wanna use a car to go around next Sunday. Lord, I didn't go to work. I told the boss I was sick. Sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do. Lord, ain't no cure for the summertime blues. I got to take 3 weeks. I got to have my vacation. Take my papa to the United Nations. Told my congressman and he said, well, sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do. Lord, there ain't no cure for the summertime. Got to take 3 weeks. I got to have my vacation. I got to take my papa to the United Nations. I told my congressman and he said, oh, sometimes I wonder what I'm gonna do. Lord, there ain't no cure for the summertime blues.
Yeah, man. Blue fucking cheer. What'd you think of that, Mr. Checkhorn?
Hold on, give me 1 second as I reset our fancy. Let's do.
All right. We're trying out new tech every week, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen. Trying to improve the audience experience.
New and improved just for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing that sticks out is that this band really wants you to think that they're not tight. Right?
Yeah, man. Okay.
They're awesome, and they're like, but we don't want to sound like we are fucking the tightest band in the world. It's like they play so loose, so sloppy. It's raw. It's nasty.
Yeah.
But they hit every beat. You know, of course, you know they should, but they're tight as fuck to do this. But they don't want you to. It's like they don't want you to know that they are. I don't know.
Yeah, man. Well, so you hear the origins of a lot of stuff right there, right?
Yeah. What's that?
Well, yeah, right there in that
blues.
song in Blue Cheer.
Yes. Yes.
You hear the origins of punk,
Yes.
of metal, all the offshoots of that stuff. You start to hear it right here in 67.
Yeah.
You know, Blue Cheer, and in the song we're going to hear next, you're really going to hear this different thing is emerging.
Right.
You know, so rock and roll started, there in the late 50s, and it started getting distorted and aggressive here in the 60s.
Sure.
Again,
Because
reflecting.
it was very not. It was heavy, but it was still
It was
keyboard or pianos.
Yeah,
You
that's
could
right.
still be a rock and roll with piano.
Yeah.
You can't be rock and roll. Well, you can.
It was
but.
a little more of a lighthearted approach.
Yes.
Right? Not so
Yeah.
heavy-handed. And now we have,
Yes.
we're stacking our amps. We're growing our hair out. We're getting weird.
Yeah, we're not shaving.
And we are pissed off about what's going on in the world.
That's true.
And here's our version of a pop song, Summertime Blues, and it's heavy and dirty
And crazy.
Yeah. So, there you go. It all kind of has its roots there in this approach to playing rock and roll.
So this is not the first, but one of the first few times a band committed this heavy to that fuzz sound.
That's right. You're starting to hear this in the late 60s. And,
Yeah.
we can't play it all. And
This is a good example of that, though.
Blue Cheer really sums up a lot of what
Yeah.
is happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're known for being at the kind of the origin point here of a lot of this stuff.
I mean,
is their approach to this.
If you say play a song from the '60s and listen
People
to what
don't
it
think
sounds.
Blue Cheer, yeah.
No, but the sound they hear that.
Yeah, they hear that big fuzz
Yeah.
wall of
Exactly.
this new experiment.
Yeah, they just don't know that name.
Yeah, they just they probably know Summertime Blues, but maybe not
Not this version.
not the Blue Cheer version.
Mm-mm.
No, so these are their demo. This was what's on this record. This is their demo that they recorded in '67. I
Okay.
think they were finally able to record a full length the following year in '68.
Right.
After they got signed, but
Did they kind of fall off after that?
yeah, they kind of fell off.
disappear?
Yeah, the record.
So how
didn't
does
do
this
very
survive
well.
then?
This got passed around in tape form. People would bootleg the Blue Cheer demo.
Gotcha. Oh.
And it has a different they played these songs on the later records, but
Right.
this is like their arrangements on this are really unique. The
Okay.
way that they
Yeah.
play the song and organize it, it's different here. And this captures their raw attack, the origin of the beginnings when they were starting this.
Sure.
Recently pressed on vinyl here, so we're able to get it. And,
So all right. So it was
it sounds
this
great.
version was sought after in the circles, in
That's
the
right.
community, in the doom community, or just in blues
just in the rock and roll
community.
Yeah,
This is a
everyone wanted
well-known version.
everyone wanted to hear that the underground version, the demo tape, and
Which gets around to how this influenced so many doom artists.
Well,
Because
yeah,
it's a staple.
got absolutely
Yeah.
Blue Cheer is definitely required learning for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, if you're into this style, this form, this approach to it, then Blue Cheer is definitely something that you want to be paying attention to. You
Nice.
want to be listening to.
Which is why they're getting played right now.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely look into Blue Cheer. There's just you hear this beginning of the form kind of right there. After we listen to some Howlin' Wolf, you get into Blue Cheer, and now we see where these kids are taking rock and roll.
So were these kids?
And that's gonna.
Would it be safe to say these kids kind of listen to Howlin' Wolf-esque, Howlin' Wolf himself?
Oh yeah,
Other-
these guys were listening to all that
Yeah.
blues and all the Delta blues and Robert Johnson and
Right.
and they're playing blues covers. These old standards, they're doing their own versions of them, but
Right.
they're really psychedelic and because they're putting their own kind of spin on them. But without the blues, we don't get Blue Cheer, we don't get Black Sabbath.
Sure. No.
We kind of start there, and that's where our chain.
The one
takes
thing
us.
that was different is that since this is a cover, it doesn't have the same emotional kind of side of it that
an original would?
Yeah, well, like the blues that you brought about at the first segment with the blues,
Right.
being that hard raw emotion. This is a cover. It's very cheery.
Yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
a cheeky topic. Oh, the
Yeah.
summertime blues.
Yeah.
Right. But shit, man. Even I don't know. You look at how Blue Cheer covered
That's what I was
a
gonna say.
song as lofty as "Summertime Blues" and
Yes.
made it into this heavy, just ass-kicking
Yeah.
machine.
Mm.
Something
that shouldn't have kicked ass and wasn't very tough when
Yeah.
it, summertime blues.
"Summertime Blues."
turned into
Everybody.
a street fighter.
Yeah, dude. And I think that it was appropriate for the time.
Yeah.
The kind of the summertime blues. You're young and you can't really control much, and the world is moving on.
Well, a lot of bands were taking these older bop songs and just fucking rocking them out.
Ripping 'em up, yeah.
Well, I mean, the Beatles were in the middle of doing this as well, or they had started yet. This is post Beatles, right? Post.
Yeah, the
British
Beatles have been
invasion?
around for a while at this point.
At this point, okay.
But it's
yeah.
That's funny you should mention that, because that's going to be our next
That's
track.
our next. Okay.
Is
All right.
is a Beatles tune, and it came out around the same time. So the Beatles song we're going to listen to is Helter Skelter, and this was the Beatles in the studio trying to record something as loud as they could.
Yeah.
So the legend is that I think Paul McCartney was reading a magazine article, and it was an interview with The
I
Who.
think I've heard this. Yeah.
And The Who was talking about how their next record is just so big and loud and raw and dirty and just maximum rock and roll.
Yeah.
And, he read that and he was like, "Nah, we're going to top that. We're going to see what we can do."
Instantaneous.
Yeah, like we're going to, because these guys are really competitive, these guys.
You had to be back then, or you were
yeah.
dead.
Yeah, straight up, volume war with
every 6 months.
Oh, yeah. They recorded this crazy, fuzzy, wild-ass song, and it is also often cited as one of the early origin points of heavy metal and punk rock.
Yeah.
Where they're taking, fuzzy blues rock, and then they're doing something aggressive with it, something edgy, and trying to express themselves and say something about the world
Sure.
with this wild-ass, crazy song.
Yeah. Well, and when you're in the Beatles position, you actually can say something with it.
Yeah, people are listening,
People
right?
are listening.
People want to know what you got to say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think that's a kind of important thing is some of these bigger artists, they have this audience, but some of these smaller unknown bands, like no one fucking heard of Blue Cheer when they were putting that demo around.
As that demo was,
they were just a bunch of, punk asses playing massive rock and roll, and people were like, we don't know what to do with this.
And then there's because you never heard it before.
But the Beatles
You don't know how to act to it. You don't know how to.
right. What would I do with that? That's so big and fucking crazy.
I guess if you think
What
about
do I
it,
do with that?
everybody knows what to do when you go to a rock show. You're either gonna get in there and mix it up, or you're gonna be like, yeah. You have appropriate responses to rock and roll now.
Sure, there are socially acceptable things to do at a rock show that.
Yeah, could you imagine rock and roll day one?
Like, what do you do?
How do I stand? Do I?
You shake your hips.
Yeah, no, you don't. I mean, you do, but the way they used to shake their hips.
Well, you see the old footage, like all the girls sitting in the stand, like just screaming.
Yeah,
they're not really
yeah.
even dancing that much. They're just screaming their head off.
Trying to survive.
That's fucking great. That shit
Yeah.
inspires all these kids. Hell yeah, I'm getting up there and doing that.
Yeah.
But Blue Cheer gets up there and stacks their amps and plays as loud as they can.
Yeah.
And people don't know what the hell. I don't know how to
Yeah.
fucking jam to this. But you start taking a bunch of acid and mushrooms, smoking
Yes.
a bunch of weed,
Yeah.
and you getting down with the underground.
Yeah.
Then you get it. You connect with it.
Yeah.
So that's maybe that's something to note here about doom metal today.
Okay.
It appeals to people who are looking for something a little different.
Right.
Where it's
It's a counterculture
it's,
environment.
it is.
For sure.
It can often be a react. Not every band, but it can often be a reaction to what's going on
Sure.
in the different eras. So here on the continuing history of doom thing that we're doing here,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to look at each era. We're going to talk about the 70s and the 80s.
Right. Right now we're in the
late 60s
late
here.
60s, yeah.
And we're going to look at each of these eras, and we should talk about that and discuss that about what these bands are reacting to in history and culture at the
Sure,
time, right?
sure.
Not just their favorite
Okay,
bands
so
and what
that's
they're trying to emulate.
That's a perfect segue then. What do you think, taking the Summertime Blues, fuzzing it out like this, turning it into this badass Street Fighter from this cute pop song?
Yeah.
What do you think that was, what is it? You said it was 68?
This was 67.
67.
And then here comes the Beatles
So
with
so
this
it's
crazy loudness war they're having with the fucking Who.
Yeah.
And they create a monster.
It's an arms race.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
fucking rock and roll arms race.
And everyone who's not the Beatles or the Who are trying to latch along. And,
oh yeah, everyone's
yeah.
getting it. Rolling Stones are involved.
Joe, the Rolling Stones, sure.
Fucking Cream
Yeah.
gets in on it.
Yeah.
We're gonna hear some Cream
Cream,
today.
see them later.
Hendrix is like, fuck that, check this out.
Hendrix,
You know.
without saying that, he doesn't have to say. He doesn't have to say anything. He just shows up.
Yeah, just shows up and starts ripping, and everyone's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was.
We've been trying to do that this whole time, but here comes this kid right out of the army.
Was that his general? Was that how he was kind of accepted? It was just like he's an alien that landed. Right? I've heard that so many times. It's like maybe that's what they were saying about him at the time as well.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, yeah.
What you would have said to Hendrix?
It feels like. Well, I mean, if you were another band and you.
Oh
were
yeah,
like,
you got fucking
like,
Jimi Hendrix out there rolling around like shit, man. How do you
Yeah.
play a festival with him? Because he's gonna kill you.
And then that's when you don't even. That's when he walks up and plugs in, and you've never seen him before a day in your life.
Right.
There's no like you read his entire bio before you get there.
No.
You watch all this stuff.
You just hear the news. There's some kid named Jimi Hendrix who gets up there, and
Exactly.
sets his shit on fire,
Yeah.
and freaks you out with some serious
And you're next.
rock and roll, and you're fucking next. This shit's gonna get you. Rock and roll's gonna infect you, and your parents are terrified. Our kids are listening.
Well,
to
no, I
this.
meant like you have to play after him. That's what I meant. Yeah.
Like if you're the Who and you're already a really big band at the time, and then you get up there, and you gotta share the stage with Hendrix.
Is there? Oh, I'm sure
You
he's
know?
got this story, but I think I heard a story about it. He did
The
that
guitar
to somebody.
smashing.
Well, no, not the smashing. Just like they grabbed him to open for somebody. Somebody just like, get this Hendrix guy. I'm sure there's a story for it, and that he blew him away. You know, and they didn't because they had no idea who he was. They just had heard of him. So there's the reaction to not the reaction to the Beatles, but this is going on. This is all going on with the Beatles about to play next. All this is kind of happening around the same time.
That's right, man.
People are influencing each other left and right.
Yeah.
Just like you said with the Who. Now they were influenced by this, so we're gonna check out the Beatles footnote into the history.
So here we go. This is Helter Skelter.
Yeah.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. Where I stop and I turn and I go for a ride. Till I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah. But don't you want me to love you? I'm coming down fast, but I'm miles above you. Tell me, come on, tell me the answer. Well, you may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer. Now helter skelter, helter skelter, helter skelter. Yeah. Won't you want me to make you? I'm coming down fast, but don't let me break you. Tell me the answer. You may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer. Look out! Helter skelter, helter skelter, helter skelter. Crosses you come. When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide, and I stop and I turn and I go for a ride, and I get to the bottom and I see you again. Yeah. But don't you want me to make you? I'm coming down fast, but don't let me break you. Tell me your answer. You may be a lover, but you ain't no dancer. Look out, helter skelter, helter skelter, helter skelter. Look out!
Helter Skelter.
Yeah, what'd you think, man? Helter Skelter.
So, all right, I don't know if I'm off base here with my timeline, but did the Beatles catch shit for going from bubblegum? This is past that though, right? They've been doing this for a while.
So the Beatles have been playing for a while at this point, for a few years.
Yeah.
They're massively popular all around the world.
Right.
But that song is pretty unique in their catalog.
Sure.
For being really loud and aggressive like that.
Yeah.
And it started a whole kind of response. People heard that and were like, "Whoa, what is that?" and the aggressive fast attack on the guitar, kind of some palm muting that you can kind of hear.
Sure.
And those kinds of things started motivating other guitar players to start playing a little bit differently.
Right.
Hearing things like Blue Cheer, the Beatles with that song,
With that one
and
song.
Cream,
Yeah.
and then Hendrix, and then we eventually kind of get ourselves into Black Sabbath, right?
Right.
So that's where it starts, is bands experimenting with this new way of playing rock and roll in this really unique time period of the late 60s.
Now that whole song doesn't come from that one Who challenge, or is it's that's the one song, or is it the whole album? Their next album?
From what I heard, it was just the song.
Just the song, okay.
Helter Skelter was written as this response to the Who, bragging about
Sure.
their record, and the Beatles like, yeah, well, check this out, and they drop a track like that as loud as they can.
So the biggest pass-throughs that go on to doom metal are just once again the blues influence, the fuzz, the loud. So when the Beatles, what I don't know, I'm a Beatles fan, but I've heard of this song.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it before. I think this might be the first or second time I've listened to it all the way through.
Right.
So how is this received? Is it kind of like, what are these guys doing? Or people like loved it? Or
Yeah,
like,
well, it threw a lot of people off, and a lot of people really liked it. Really liked the new sound.
Yeah.
Or what was becoming the new sound. With Blue Cheer and the Beatles and other bands at the time.
Sure.
Putting this edge on everything.
Yeah.
And it resonates with how people feel, and that carries over into heavy rock and roll that becomes heavy metal.
Right.
And then we get doom metal from there. But it
kind of has a branching of the heavy metal.
Yeah, that's
branches
right.
off,
Yeah. So we get here with Blue Cheer and the Beatles, Helter Skelter. We get the origins of heavy metal and bands like them at the time,
Right.
trying this different thing.
Right.
And some of it was kind of sarcastic, like Helter Skelter was like, "Oh yeah, we'll show you."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you got Blue Cheer, who's like, "No man, crank it up. Let's fucking stack
Yeah.
these amps. Let's get fucking loud as fuck and fucking play our guts out all the time, not just for one track.
Not just for
but
one track.
That's just what
just
we
to show
do.
what we can do. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny that the dynamic there between like they show the Beatles demonstrate. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we can do that.
But they're like, no, we are that.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
So that there are a lot of bands like that at the time. They're like, we're gonna
Okay.
be loud as fuck all the time.
And of course, the Beatles probably saw a lot of those bands and heard
Sure,
about it.
yeah,
They were just
yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. And they're probably influenced by a lot of that.
So that that kind of gets us into the next band, Cream, which was kind of a supergroup at the late '60s at the time.
Clapton.
Yeah.
right, was in there.
Cream is the supergroup, and they're totally all about being as loud as they possibly fucking can.
Right.
Even in the band, the musicians are battling each other for who can be the loudest on stage.
Why? Just because.
Because
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
massive egos in
Yeah.
Cream. These guys are in other really popular bands
That's
at the
true.
time, and this kind of took off on its own. The Cream project.
Yeah.
But they do a lot of stuff that's relevant to what we're eventually getting to.
Yeah.
Because they, not on all their songs, but on a lot of their songs, they do this heavy blues attack.
Sure.
It's got a heavy riff. It's got some kind of palm muting. It's got this, the origins of Jugga Jugga in heavy
It's the
metal. We're
sound.
starting to hear that
Yeah, it's
now.
the sound that not everyone was playing, but it was a sound that was dominating, and they had some of the greatest guitar players at the time doing their part of it who really were into it.
Yeah, that's fucking rock and roll of the '60s. An amazing time to be playing music and listening to music, and it's a really interesting era to study.
Well, you were allowed to do something completely off the wall.
That would be the time for it, yeah.
Yes.
And let's not forget that everybody's high as fuck. You know, these guys
Let's
are coked out
not
of their
forget
minds,
that. Yeah.
and you know they're
Yeah.
smoking piles of weed.
Kind of at their height of they're in their peak, as a human being, physically, so they can handle
They're amping
copious
that
amount
up.
of drugs.
Yeah, the fucking
Yeah.
this rock and roll. You know, and then they grew up to be pretty devastated older
Oh, yeah.
men. You know,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
fucking drugs. You know,
Caught up
fuck
with
you
them fast.
Drugs caught up with cream after all that rock and rolling and partying. Definitely did, man. So we should warn the kids at home not to rock and roll too hard.
I don't think well,
But
they
it's-
stream instead. They
Yeah.
stream. They do this instead.
Stream.
But they still party though.
All right.
Yeah.
Just, when you're partying and doing whatever it is that you do, you know, moderation, or you're gonna end up
Like cream.
fucking. Well, I don't know. You're gonna end up, you know, dead in the bathtub or some shit.
Yeah. Well, you could
know,
you
with-
could do it on the first night of doing that. You never knew.
Just be careful with Doom, ladies and gentlemen. This stuff is fucking heavy. This stuff can really fuck you up if you're not careful.
All right. So these guys
yeah.
guys put this sound out, and
Okay, so
they're so okay.
Green-
Who were these guys listening to? Probably. Who
well,
do you think?
they're listening to all those old blues artists.
So we're
and
still
those early rock and roll pioneers, Chuck
Yeah.
Berry, Little Richard, and you know, Howlin Wolf, Robert Johnson.
Mhm,
They're listening to that stuff. They're just doing their own big electrified take on it,
Right.
and making it their own. And through that, we start getting the origins of hard rock, heavy metal, psychedelic style and approach to the whole thing.
Right.
You know, and then eventually that births us doom, that summons us the darkness that becomes doom metal.
Which, by the way,
It begins. You know, the roots are here in these tracks.
I don't know. Going back to our first episode, we're bringing out these covers because, this podcast is going to be about physical, actual media. You
Yeah.
know, we play records on this podcast.
Yeah, physical media is a big part of who we are as a company,
Yeah.
and as this podcast. You know, that's what we want to play here. Anybody can look up an MP3 and
Exactly.
stream it on
And have it
app
in
and-
your ears as you're just walking around.
Sure, but this is sitting and listening to vinyl. Is a different way of listening to music. You know, it's kind of its own thing. It requires a little bit of effort and patience, and I find it very enriching and rewarding.
Okay. So what's the name of the next song?
So we're gonna
coming
play "Sunshine of Your Love."
up? Okay. Cool.
So this record, this is Cream's second record. It's known for being a little more psychedelic than their first one, which was straight heavy blues.
Right.
This is where they're doing that, but they're bringing in shit. Start getting weird, you know. They start bringing in
They
a lot
found-
of psychedelic.
They found the right drugs.
Yeah, they found some drugs that worked with what they were trying to do, and they can't. Let me
And
look
they
at that
took
cover,
all
man.
of them. That's what I
That
was saying.
cover just
Has
says
that night
drugs. That's got drugs all over it.
Yes. Yeah. Just to replace cream with drugs.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little weird just looking at it, man. Like I'm
Once
seeing
again,
beyond.
Once again, the quintessential. Tell me what you think a 1960s album cover looks like.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
There's
yeah.
you. That should be in the dictionary under 60s psychedelic album covers. It fucking probably is. If I knew where my dictionary was, I would show it. I'd look it up. Anyway,
So wait,
Yeah,
where
so-
were they based out of? Did they?
they're from the UK.
They're from the UK.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, and they had they had such a huge influence. Obviously, we're not saying anything new here, but their influence, you gotta have to make sure. That's why I asked
yeah,
the question.
the
It's like,
British
this is-
invasion, man. Like a lot, heavy metal and doom metal starts with the British bands.
It's got
with
to,
these
right?
British rock bands.
because they love the blues so
Yeah.
much.
It's when Sabbath starts putting out what and starts putting out what is effectively heavy metal
Yeah.
intentionally.
Right.
Right, they're trying to do this heavy fucking sound that's
Sure.
inspired by all the stuff that we're kind of getting to here.
Right.
When the Americans start hearing that Black Sabbath, that's where we're going to shift into the 70s.
Okay.
After that'll probably be the next episode of this series.
Right.
We'll
right.
get into what the Americans are doing in the 70s when they pick up this
When
sound.
they pick up this sound. Okay.
Yeah, so it starts in the UK with the British invasion rock and roll, and that inspires a lot of bands here in the US, and we're going to follow that stream
All
of
right.
doom consciousness from Black Sabbath to the shores here of North America,
Because it's a
and
straight
what,
shot.
what
I mean,
they start doing
it's
in
a
the 70s.
very clear line of
Yeah.
delineation.
And then it's funny because we'll be in the U.S. for the most of the 70s and 80s here, but in the 90s we go back to the
Go
UK
back
and pick
right.
it up with Electric Wizard and what those cats start doing
So yeah,
with
yeah.
the sound. So
kind of returns home.
yeah,
Okay,
it goes
cool.
back and forth across the pond. Yeah.
So
okay,
let's
cool.
hit up this Cream.
Let's play some fucking Cream, man. Here
All
we
right.
go.
And this is not the Wu-Tang Clan. This is actual Cream.
It's getting near dawn when lights close the tired eyes. I'll soon be with you, my love. Give you my dawn surprise. I'll be with you, darling, soon. I'll be with you when the stars start falling. I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going, in the sunshine of your love. I'm with you, my love. The light shining through on you. Yes, I'm with you, my love. It's the morning and just we two. I'll stay with you, darling, now. I'll stay with you till my seas are dried up. I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going, in the sunshine of your love. I'm with you, my love. The light shining through on you. Yes, I'm with you, my love. It's the morning and just we two. I'll stay with you, darling, now. I'll stay with you till my seas are dried up. I've been waiting so long. I've been waiting so long. I've been waiting so long to be where I'm going, in the sunshine of your love.
Okay, Cream. Wow.
Yeah, dude. Cream. What do you think?
So obviously heard that song before. I think Scorsese used it in I don't know. I've seen it in many movies, but to listen to it in the context of this
Okay.
History of Doom,
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I hear it all now.
You hear it?
Like hearing it in a soundtrack, you're like, obviously your attention is split from it. But as soon as that song starts out, I was like, okay, of course I know this song. But do I? Do I really know this song? No, I don't. Because there's no scene. Just listening, I don't think I've ever listened to it by itself. You know?
Well, that's why we're here, right?
Exactly.
It's just to listen to the tracks and talk about them and really sit there, really sit here and listen to them.
Sure.
Hear what is coming across.
You hear all the classic riffs, the blues. I guess the echo reverb of the lead guitar.
Yeah.
Is a straight callback to the blues. You know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it's the same. I guess is it safe to say they're the exact same licks, louder?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're no different.
These are just blues riffs, man. This is a blues riff and beat.
I guess I want them to be different because I think they're trying to do something different, but they're not, other than being loud.
They crank it up and crank up the fuzz and, stack those amps up, daisy chain them. This shit is loud as hell, but they're basically just playing blues rock.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is in that sonic mountain that they're building that a new style starts to come out, right?
It's a transmutation of the actual music itself.
That shit transmogrifies
into a whole new sound,
into a whole new thing, and then people are like, okay, let's get that, let's do that, let's try and sound that way. Let's turn the amps up. Let's the aggressive attack on the guitars, playing a blues song really aggressively, really loud with emotion.
You don't normally have to play a blues song aggressively. It can be
It
smooth.
can be pretty chill, right? So it can be pretty chill, but they're playing them with this aggressiveness, this power that is responding to the moment that they're in.
Yeah,
you know this.
Do you think those original blues guys, if they had those amps, would do that?
Oh shit, man! If they would have fucking developed,
it's funny to think about that.
If they would have been Blue Cheer before Blue Cheer was Blue Cheer.
Yeah, because they all played acoustic, right? And it was.
But if they had some fucking humbuckers and some Marshall stacks,
how would they?
And an Edge,
what would that even be?
Shit, man.
I guess it's the same thing. We know what that would be. It would be rock and roll.
Yeah. They'd be fucking doing heavy metal. I don't know. That's not how it worked out. These British kids picked it up.
Right. Cream's from the UK.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Beatles and the Stones, Zeppelin, Sabbath, everybody that played heavy rock.
Yeah.
That kind of started heavy rock. They from the UK.
Why do you think that
the Americans picked it up?
Why do you think it came in that order? Why didn't?
Well,
because America sent out their rock and
British
roll and blues,
invasion, so
and then they brought that back.
Yeah, that's the thing is that these British bands they picked up what was happening in the U.S. the blues, and the early rock and roll. They picked it up and started doing their own thing with it, making it super loud and tripping it out.
Because nobody wanted to hear the blues around here. I mean, you had your diehards, but it wasn't super popular. It wasn't like mass, like.
I don't know. Yeah, what were people listening to in '54? Like big band?
Yeah, exactly. Glenn Miller, right? Yeah.
That's probably what your average square was jamming out to.
Exactly.
Was show tunes and
like blues and jazz
band.
were not.
No, they weren't.
They were very niche.
Yeah, absolutely. They were. It's kind of an underground thing, right?
Sure.
It was because it was so expressive and questioned the status quo, right? And that's that rock and roll spirit. The punks picked up on it, the metalheads picked up on it, and it kind of starts there.
So Cream does this song. So wait, what's
Sunshine of Your Love?
Sunshine of Your Love. It's this song that probably 3 out of 10, maybe 4 out of 10 people know that riff. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty iconic riff, I mean, that song was really popular and. Kind of what it represents of the band is it's got their kind of blues rock bass, but there's still that psychedelic overtone to everything.
Yes. Yeah.
Where they're bringing in this new element that's responding to all the stuff happening around them in the counterculture. It's not just blues, it's loud blues, it's heavy blues, and it's also psychedelic and somehow responding to the moment.
How often do you think that riff gets confused for Hendrix? Right? Doesn't it? it's very
I don't know. They would play each other's songs live a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. There's probably a version of Hendrix doing Cream
Sure,
out there. And
sure. Good. I mean, it sounds
covered a lot of the same songs.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be an interesting study listening to all the different covers of.
Is it
blues
Cream or
standards.
Hendrix? Next song coming up
Yeah.
is
Okay. So moving on to the next thing, man. So yeah.
So all right. Well, let's see. Cream
Yeah, we got
is
Cream.
Now, are we going forward or backwards in time?
We're going forward in time. We're trying to do it more or less in a linear fashion.
Okay.
For the folks at home, too.
Because I know there was a little bit of backtracking, but now from here on out we're going forward in time.
Pretty much going forward
Okay.
in time, yeah. And a lot of this stuff is happening right next to each other. So
yes.
And there's a lot of other bands that are doing similar things that are pushing the art forward. So this is by no means a total coverage.
Sure.
Of the whole thing. It's just, we've got some strong representations of the big moments that are moving this thing.
And
right.
If you've watched the whole show, you can hear, like, if you just go right now, go back to the opening of the show. You can hear
go back to Howlin Wolf, right?
Yeah.
And you can
hear what you just heard in Cream.
It's still there.
Yeah.
That blues bass.
Absolutely.
They're just doing their own take on it. So, keeping in with that. So, one thing that was happening with all this experimentation in the 60s is that these songs are starting to get really long.
Right.
Okay? These guys would, drop out and take some...
something heavy.
Yeah, take something heavy, and then they would jam out for a long time, and these songs would get really long and really experimental, where they would solo for a long time and try all these different things, all these different sounds to do something different.
Right.
Pop songs was, at the time, 2 minutes or so.
2:30 tops.
Yeah,
and better pushing it at 3.
And so we started getting bands that are like, no, let's let the music play out for a while.
Right.
Let's do something different. So we get into this band, Iron Butterfly, probably best known for their song "Inagata da Vida,"
okay,
which is 17:22, 17 minutes 22 seconds.
Wow.
That's pretty fucking long.
Yeah.
So they're most famous for that. For having like a really long whole side of the record.
Yeah.
Everyone fucking knows
Everyone
that.
knows the song. At least kind of. They've heard it at least once.
But why is it relevant to the history of Doom?
Yes.
Because the song is heavy as fuck. and Doom metal picked up on songs being longer, a jam in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Some improvisation. Because that's in the blues, is that guitar solo improvisation solo, that's
and
a really
just the backing band just chugging along,
that's right.
like just holding the beat.
That has carried through all the different forms of rock and roll, and doom metal, of course, picks up on that.
Yeah, it emphasizes it a little bit more than most.
That's
because
right.
it embraces the long song.
Yeah,
it embraces the different parts, the solos, not all.
And then, bringing back like the master riff.
Yes.
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 So that's why Iron Butterfly, one of the early pioneers of hard rock, heavy rock, psychedelic rock, and that spins off into heavy metal, and they've got some heavy songs.
Right.
That's why we're going to play some Iron Butterfly right now, because they're relevant to our history lesson, History of Doom, and this is a fucking bad jam.
Yeah.
This is a great song.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm interested. I obviously know the song. I've heard it. I mean, I've heard of it thousands of times. Never listened to the whole thing. This will be,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna fucking.
All right.
Check horn. We're gonna blow your mind with
Let's
this shit.
see it, man.
I mean, trip out.
I think I've heard. I've heard on what was the old oldie station, KERLD or whatever. I've heard the 3-minute version for radio. That's not.
That's the 3-minute version. This is 17 minutes and 22 seconds of psychedelic hard rock acid tripping,
in its intended form, right?
Oh,
yeah. Okay. So
absolutely.
Yes.
So
All right.
here it is. Here's
check it out.
Iron Butterfly and Agata da Vida.
Sweet.
Don't you know that I'm loving you? In a Galata Vita, baby. Don't you know that I'll always be true? Oh, won't you come with me and take my hand? Oh, won't you come with me and walk this line? Please take my hand. Let me tell you, in a Galata Vita, honey, don't you know that I'm loving you? In a Galata Vita, baby, don't you know that I'll always be true? Oh, won't you come with me and take my hand? Oh, won't you come with me and walk this line? Please take my hand. It's all right. All right, man. Come. Don't you know that I'm loving you? In a garden of Eden, baby. Don't you know that I've always been true? Oh, won't you come with me and take my hand? Oh, won't you come with me and we'll walk this line? Please take my hand.
And we are back. Is
Oh shit, man! Iron Butterfly. What'd you think of that shit?
It's the next day, right? It's tomorrow.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
So, jeez,
that shit. I told you, man.
I
That
don't
shit was
know
gonna crack
what
your head
to
open,
think.
man.
I don't know what to think of that. Okay, so obviously, iconic. I haven't heard this version before,
Okay. Right.
but once again, I hear every sentiment of every genre of rock and roll that's broke off in this song. I mean, other than like what? I mean, I guess you don't hear skate punk in this, but you kind of do. But it's. I guess most of the time I'm thinking like, this has got to be powered by drugs.
Well, yeah. We had the
Well, yeah, you can
The
see it in
live
the wide
clip.
shot. Yeah.
the live clip playing, and you could see the little the film burn that they were doing.
Sure.
You know, the kind of the acid slide, the color slides.
To represent taking acid.
A strong visual representation of LSD use.
Because it felt like drops. Like it looked like drops, just over
dropping acid.
I think that's what they were
taking drugs and playing 17. So that song is 1705. I said 1722 earlier, but 1705. And playing long ass songs like that, where everybody gets a solo, drum solo, organ solo, bass solo, like 3 guitar solos or something, and then that riff. And
the way they come and go back to it is different. It's the same riff, but they approach it every time. The way they bring it back in the last time is fucking killer.
Oh yeah, the way they close it out.
Yeah, well they come back to it because they come back to it right after all the solos, but kind of quickly.
Right.
And then you're like, oh, because you're waiting for it to come back, but they're like, because it feels a little off. They play it differently, but the last time they come back to it, it sounds like the opening, which is like, when does he start singing again? Yeah. And you're like, that's what I was looking for. That's what I've been waiting for. And they bring it back in right at the right time. The
big
perfect
payoff.
Time. Yeah. Yes. I think that's a better way to put it. Yeah.
Can you imagine writing a song like that at that moment in time?
I think that's
trying to somehow
as both of us who have tried to play in bands. Yeah, that's it. I mean, because you're creating the sound. They are credited with creating the sound, right? So
they're building on everything that's coming before them.
True. Yes.
And just turning it up.
But it's like, there's not more. As many. So imagine when you and I tried to start our bands in college. Yeah. Many examples.
Right.
Many. And how do you? But here there's some. These guys seem like San Francisco.
I'm pretty sure they're from.
Okay. I mean,
West Coast.
It's not as you're still new. The sound is still new. You can still play with it, even though there's a lot of bands that are famous doing it. Not as many as like there are today. You know, obviously with time going by, but you can still get in a new sound that hasn't been done before, hasn't been played out in any way. You can still be authentic to it because it's still happening in progress. You know, I've seen a lot of bands that what I grew up with in Fort Worth. They kind of died out because they're just like, they don't think there's anything else they can do after playing together for a few weeks, you know, or a couple of live shows. They're like, all right, this is all we can do. We sound like this. We don't want to do that. Back then, you could fucking sound like whatever you wanted.
Yeah, you weren't really trying to sound like anything. You know, you were just sort of with the one-upsmanship and the kind of the loudness game they were playing and pushing it into new spaces, and there were new spaces to go.
Yes, yeah, like with the longer songs, the solos, how do you arrange your solo? Yeah. How do you arrange who goes first, or how do you come back to your main riff? You know, there's a lot of different ways you could go with that.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal for rock and roll at the time.
Yeah, this particular song.
Yeah,
did it ever get played on the radio?
So
like the full version?
I think that it did.
Yeah.
I remember reading about that occasionally they would play it, but there was the 3-minute version. You know, there's the 7-inch version of this. It's the edited version. It's just like the main part. Mm-hmm. I think it's got a little bit of that drum solo. It's got like a little snippet of all the solos, but we should find it and
see play the difference.
On the show. Compare them. Yeah. Compare and contrast. But longer songs like this didn't regularly get played on the radio. If they did, it was like an event. Like tonight at 7 p.m., we're playing all of Inagata on the air. But no, not in regular rotation. Probably the short version, I'm sure. But
of course,
that was an issue with doom metal, I suppose, is that the songs are so long. You're not going to hear them on.
They're not going to any
clear channel. You're not going to hear them on the radio.
Play is dead anyway, so
they'll play some classic rock and Sabbath songs, but that's about as. That's it. Is the super popular Black Sabbath songs,
which can be longer. Yeah, longer than your normal. Yeah.
Somewhat, but
nothing like that.
No, nothing like that.
So is there? Okay, who would you say? Okay. Let's talk about this. So, who are the people who let the long song really take effect?
Fucking Sleep.
Sleep.
Yeah, we'll get to Sleep for sure. We'll definitely do a show about them. They have such a amazing catalog. There's a lot to get into there, but they're probably the contemporary masters of the long song.
Right.
You know, Dope Smoker is an hour long.
Damn.
All the songs on the Sciences are, like 11 minutes, and
and they're not
those songs are
considering
really
that
long.
like you said, they're not considering that like a mini record or anything. They consider that
That's a
one
whole
song.
record. Yeah, it's one song with
Even though it's
got
10
10 of those, really long songs on it. That's just kind of the thing with Doom is length.
Yeah.
Mass and length. It's
Yeah,
a question
well,
of
that's
mass
pause.
and length.
Yeah. Okay. hopefully that's just a question of
Weight,
Doom. Yeah.
mass, length. It's really important
Yeah.
to Doom.
That's
to
why
the Doom approach.
So, and it comes from the fact that Indigada the Vita
Yeah.
kind
These
of
songs were
said it's
long
okay.
and
Go ahead.
heavy. Yeah.
Just fucking.
You can fucking jam
17 minutes
out
long.
for a whole side of an album.
Because like we know you get high and do it anyway.
Yeah.
So just
there you
fucking
go. They
play.
just-
Put the whole first song on the A side of the record. Just one song.
What's the B side? Inagata de Vita's the B side.
Yeah. Oh wait, is this? Oh, this
Yeah.
is the actual. So
Yeah.
the whole track is the B side of their
Yeah,
album.
yeah.
See, I was just guessing at that. I didn't even
No,
realize.
the Inagata de Vita is the whole side. It's the whole side of the record.
I mean, what else?
The
I mean,
B-side.
what, you gonna put 2 more songs after that?
No, fuck no.
Why would
You're
you?
not gonna do that. No, you're gonna
And
gonna
what-
fade out and that's it. You're done.
That's it for this side of the
That's it,
album.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta flip it back over and listen to the other side of it if you want to keep going.
I couldn't
You gotta
imagine
stop right there.
trying to decide what to put before for an album.
Yeah, I could.
What to put before or after this.
No, it deserves its own side.
Yeah. So Sleep takes over that mantle.
Yeah,
Okay.
Sleep's got the length
Right.
and mass now.
Okay.
That's definitely their thing.
So now, all right. So these guys lead into our next group, which is
Okay, so
okay.
yeah.
So wait. So now
this,
we're
this was 1968,
That's what I was gonna ask. Yeah.
and now this is 1968, and now we're getting into 1969.
Okay.
And we are
Barreling
one
towards.
one step closer to Black Sabbath.
Okay.
That's where all of this has been working up towards.
We are approaching
Black
the gates
Sabbath.
of Mordor.
That's right. Right.
And we can see the eye of Sauron in the distance. So we're almost there.
Shit is
Yeah.
getting really fucking dark. People are on drugs. Shit's getting weird. There's all kinds of war and people getting assassinated, and shit's just fucked up.
So is Zeppelin.
And
yeah,
people
we're
are
heading towards the
responding.
70s, and Zeppelin.
Right. This is 69. The 60s are coming to a
At
crazy
close, right.
conclusion, a crash.
And Zeppelin has been dominating, right? For most
No.
of are they just showing up? Zeppelin's
So,
just showing up.
Yeah, Zeppelin is just now getting here.
Okay.
The guys who formed Led Zeppelin had played in blues bands and
okay,
stuff before
yeah.
for sure, but this is like their thing, and their first album is released in 1969.
Okay.
And
that's what we're about to listen to.
That's right. So they're like deliberately trying to have a heavy approach to what they're
Right,
doing.
Right.
So this is where heavy metal starts to form.
Okay.
Where I think
They just dropped off another piece of everything we've listened to before.
yeah,
They're dropping off.
and now
Yeah.
we have arrived at heavy metal.
So this is like
Yeah.
this is like if you took Cream and just turned up the heavy metal part.
Yeah, so with Zeppelin you're gonna hear, the hard rock riffs, the blues are still there, but they're pretty hard now. So it's
Yeah.
the blues is still a big part of what Zeppelin does, but they've got
It's not as a
they've got this
clear
riffy-
blues.
they've got this riffy approach
Yeah.
and a pretty hard attack on the guitar.
Mhm.
And we've been hearing that start to form here. Less of a big fuzz, psychedelic, crazy. Zeppelin is a very tight unit
Yes.
and a
like I
very
said earlier-
controlled approach.
Like I said earlier, they look and sound polished, tight,
yeah,
controlled, neat.
it is.
They're not
it's a
trying to
very-
pretend to be loose or to be.
That's right. This
yeah,
is not
this-
Blue Cheer, but that bit is still there. Like there's still
Yes.
a piece of that there of that heaviness.
Yeah.
Where you take
Yeah.
just blues rock and it gets really loud and fuzzy and heavy, and now Zeppelin's like, all right, let's do something with that.
But they sharpen it up, though.
They do. They really clean it up. The musicianship is like several levels above everyone else. That's the thing. Like Led Zeppelin, these guys are really good fucking musicians. They're really good.
They're considered some of the greatest.
That's right.
I mean, from singer to drummer to dead drummer to
Damn.
I mean, you know, he did. He's like, well, we just lost one of the greatest of all time, and I mean, I don't know if it's still considered now, but when I was growing up, you know, when I finally figured out who they were, they're like, oh yeah, he was one of the greatest drummers of all time.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
So Zeppelin's they're still doing blues rock, but it's really heavy blues rock, and they're trying to kind of put an emphasis on that.
Right.
And this is also Led Zeppelin is where we get the first appearance. Well, maybe not the first appearance, but the
first
one
major...
of the first appearances of the occult.
Right.
In rock and roll, in heavy rock and roll,
right.
which is gonna be a synonymous, united thing from there on out.
Right.
Is the occult and heavy rock and roll, heavy metal. Now it's a fucking thing. So
that obsession
Zeppelin.
with the cult's probably bubbling under the surface, throughout as these kind of genres are being formed.
Well, sure,
they're
yes.
picking that up, and these guys go like, we kind of like that. We're about that, and here we're gonna bring it out. Out to the open.
So in the late '60s is when there was kind of an occult subculture within the counterculture.
Sure. Yeah. Everybody wanted to be a witch or some shit.
Yeah, like a lot of that was getting kind of picked up within certain parts of the hippie movement and the counterculture movement.
Yeah.
And some rock and rollers picked up on that.
Yeah.
And
because some of them were those same people.
Yeah. So our boys in Led Zeppelin, they picked up on that a little bit.
Yeah.
And as a way of kind of spiritual connection to something greater than yourself, to oversimplify it,
Yeah, I mean,
through certain theatrical rituals and certain icons and
like making
symbolism,
trading whatever I have as a human being for this talent I call this fucking song. I just
selling your soul for rock and roll,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it seemed almost okay, deal. Yeah, it's okay. They're like, if you could actually do that, this is one of the first things where like it was openly, people would be like, I'd fucking do that, because before that in history, it'd be like, Satan, get thee behind me. I would never.
Only Robert Johnson, he sold his soul.
Exactly. Yes.
To the devil.
He was the first to do it. That story takes hold.
To play the blues, man.
And then these guys are bringing it in. It's like, we have fucking made the deal.
Yeah.
We did it. We just did it in the back room before we came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's gonna get us into Black Sabbath a little bit, because Black Sabbath tends to embrace the
it was
the darkness.
Page, right? Page was the big one to it. I don't know if Plant was.
Yeah.
He was like cool, but I don't know if he was as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Zeppelin is, you start getting into medieval castles and the cold English countryside.
What did we say? That's their heritage. I
mean,
that's
their
cowboys and
heritage.
Indians.
Their cowboys and Indians. Yeah, they're medieval stuff.
And Indians.
There's going to be a lot of English people that are pissed.
Well, I mean, look, hey, sorry, we'll
out.
check in. Sorry, England, UK, we'll check in.
Oh,
we
love them. This stuff starts.
We just wish we had it, because we watched. Well, I've seen how many medieval King Arthur movies. I've watched them all. Love that shit.
So, this eventually gets us to the aesthetic of Black Sabbath.
Okay.
And
so
what
these,
doom metal.
This is right before Black Sabbath.
This is just before. So this is
now
1969.
Are the boys from Black Sabbath contemporaries with these guys?
Yeah.
Or listening to these guys?
They're listening. They're from the same. They're from the same country.
Same country.
They're
so
very
they know
aware,
about these guys.
They're very aware of each other.
Yeah.
And I think maybe not. Maybe it was this record. Zeppelin was bragging about how heavy this record was, their first album.
Right.
We're going to hear a song from
right.
it. They were bragging about how heavy it was. And I think it was, I don't know if it was Geezer or or Tony from Sabbath was read that
Once again.
and they were like, "Fuck that, we're gonna be heavier."
Once again.
And then they dropped,
Yeah.
what we're gonna hear later. But we gotta hear Led Zeppelin, and we gotta hear their approach to heavy blues,
Okay.
and that became heavy metal. And Doom, always kind of comes back to that heavy psychedelic approach to blues,
Right.
right?
Okay. So what's the name of this track?
This is fuck. What was it gonna? Let me look.
All right.
Oh, how ironic! It's Dazed and Confused.
Oh yeah. Okay. I've once again heard of
Yeah.
it. Probably never heard the whole version,
Yeah,
but I know the song. But
Okay.
yes, let's in
we
this
go.
context.
yeah.
we
Here it
go.
is, Dazed and Confused.
Been dazed and confused for so long, it's not true. Wanted a woman, never bargained for you. Lots of people talking, few of them know. Soul of a woman was created below. You hurt and abused, telling all of your lies. Run, sweet baby, Lord, how they hypnotize. Sweet little baby, I don't know where you've been. Gonna love you, baby. Here I come again. Every day I work so hard, bringing home my heart and pain. Try to love you, baby, but you push me away. Don't know where you're going, only know just where you've been. Sweet little baby, I want you again.
So I got one thing to say.
Okay, what's that? Let's hear it. Let's hear it, man.
So on the occult side of Led Zeppelin, or whatever it's called, whatever we're gonna call it, that was an invitation to the dark side. The dark side has cookies. We have cookies on the dark
Right?
side.
So these rock and rollers are making it look pretty sweet down there in hell, huh? Yeah. Making Satan look attractive and interesting and
Whatever you want to call it, whatever Satan, Loki, whatever bad side of it you want to call it, is like, it's sexy over here though. And they fucking showed up and just said, "Nah, we're the cool guys." Yeah.
man, I tell you, the rock and roll's had that love affair with all that ever since.
Absolutely. And
Freaking out parents and shocking everybody, shocking all the squares.
well, because it's like it is basically, it's a big I dare you to, the society dared anyone not to fit in society, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And you got these guys going like,
yeah, fuck that.
sure.
Growing my hair out, and I'm gonna drop acid every day. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
rock out on this electric guitar in front of 10 amplifiers. And
That you've never seen before, Because now
rock and rolls from outer space, man.
Because now granddads will be with their son, or, a granddad will be with his son and his grandkid at the Hot Water Music Show or the Green Day Show. That was not happening back then.
No.
Your dad fucking wanted not only to kill you,
Yeah.
he would say if your granddad ever found out, he would kill you.
If he was there with his church group protesting
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin's performance.
Yeah, not
or
with his son.
Black Sabbath's performance.
No.
Yeah, not at the show, enjoying the music. Certainly not.
Let alone the dad's dad.
Oh, yeah.
The
No,
dad's
my
dad be like,
great grandpa's not gonna be there.
You haven't killed him yet? He's a witch or he's a warlock or whatever, They'd be like, what do you mean? You hadn't.
Rock and roll is straight from hell.
Yeah.
It is. This is proof. Are we not demonstrating that here tonight on this podcast?
That lick, that bow, bow, bow. It's like, okay. That right there probably stopped every mother in the hallway and went, what are you listening to? That sequence of notes is the instant mother alert.
Yeah. She hears that. She's like, what's going on in there, young man? What are you doing in there?
Those are not major chords that go progress in an upbeat way.
That shit's going down. That shit is descending.
And of course, we have the return of the earnest, emotional, just like
straight up. Yeah, he is
a woman
feeling it,
destroyed his his universe.
And he is letting the world know how painful that was, man. That shit hurt. And he is fucking singing about it, man.
I mean, and then he's got this amazing, on this bed of musicians that, punctuate every emotion I possibly can. But I can't. You can only sing words. You can't, scream like a guitar. You can scream, but you can't scream like a guitar.
Yeah, that guitar is saying things you can't say.
But
you feel.
But
you feel it,
yeah, dude.
That's the fucking magic of heavy metal. That's the black magic of heavy metal right there. Of rock and roll.
Well, once they found tube amps. Once they found tube amps.
Oh, you can crank it up like that and get that sound.
Because
Absolutely.
before that, if they don't figure that out, which of course, if you have an amp, someone's going to accidentally turn it up and play it, just to see what does this do? Oh, that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So we just happened to get 4 people who called themselves Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. So that was 1969. So
okay,
we should close out the year with a special. We should close out 1969 with a special performance.
Yeah. Okay. By.
So we've talked about Jimi Hendrix, but we haven't heard from him yet. So
that's right. I've mentioned him like twice so far.
Yeah, I thought this would be a good place here in the lesson, lecture, to drop some Jimi Hendrix on everybody and talk about him for a minute.
Does Jimmy? Okay. In the I guess, so is he just showing up? Is he just showing up?
No, Hendrix,
he's been around for a while.
A while. Yeah, he's been around for a few years.
Yeah.
This is from Band of Gypsies, which was one of his other bands. He
Right.
had a few different groups that he kind of amassed around him at different times.
Right.
And this is Band of Gypsies, and they got together to record a couple of live shows, and this is one of them. So this is from New Year's Eve, 1969, to New Year's Day, 1970. Playing at midnight.
Okay, yeah.
So they were like really, literally closing
is
out
the-
the '60s with this
With
performance.
this song. Yeah.
So I think Hendrix and his music can really represent a lot of what we're trying to say about the late '60s and this heavy guitar-driven experimental approach to playing the blues and how it becomes something different.
Right.
I think this track is a really strong example of that. And like the electric guitar, it puts into feelings what I can't express.
Of course.
Through
That's the one thing I
dictation.
knew about Jimi Hendrix. He's like he speaks English with a guitar.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
So this song right here is a mournful cry of how the '60s are ending, with Vietnam and all the injustice
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all the struggle and the riots
No
and
solution. I mean, no
no answers other than
Well,
the
no
government
answers.
crackdown on.
no answers. We just spent the last 10 years trying to stop it, and then we
Oh,
still can't stop
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's just
Yeah.
still a fucking mess.
Yeah.
So, but this song was definitely, kind of a blues for the era, the end of the era, kind of a lament,
Okay, let me ask you this.
lamentation.
So you say that.
Yeah.
So you think, all right, without talking about them too much, because we're saving them for next. Do you think the boys across the pond that we're about to get to see that full context of what Jimmy's saying, or they're just so enthralled by the music?
No, well, yeah, Hendrix definitely influenced what was going on over there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What's more,
For sure, they're hearing
the
Hendrix
boys in
and
the Sabbath? Do you
Yeah.
think they get the full, like what you just said, that this is the end of this? We're closing it out, because that's a context unique to Americans. But they're not living that. They probably are aware of some of the things. They're doing their own things in the UK.
Well, yeah, the '60s as kind of an era,
Yeah.
was still experienced in the UK and in Europe.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a little bit different than what was happening here, but
Right.
still the counterculture movement was still flourishing.
Present in both places.
Yeah, it
in
was
both continents.
absolutely right. It was
Yeah.
a big deal, and that's what where we get Cream and Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath
Sure.
is from that.
Well, I guess
So-
the proof
but
of that is the
It's
yeah.
the music is kind of influencing back and forth.
Right.
It's American blues, and jazz that kind of influences British rock and roll,
Yeah.
that influences more American heavy music. I mean, Hendrix is an American,
Right.
but he's listening to all this stuff going
But
on.
he performed. He
Yeah.
died in Europe.
Yeah,
right?
and he was kind of in competition with everybody for who could be loudest and who could
yeah.
put on the most outrageous stage
He
show.
felt more European than American.
Well, this song is a very I don't know. It kind of, maybe it speaks to an individual who is looking at everything and feels very.
Okay.
It feels something very heavy about the moment,
Right.
and this song is trying to get at that.
So you think, all right, that's what I was getting at earlier. So that even got across to the people in the UK. That sentiment.
Absolutely.
Even though he was an American artist.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think eventually, Black Sabbath picked up on what Hendrix was putting down.
Sure.
In some of his heavier songs, and they felt that, and they kind of brought a little bit of that into what they were doing.
Okay.
For sure.
So-
And
so
we'll hear that whenever we listen to the Sabbath song too. But let's play the Hendrix track, man.
What is it? What is it again?
So
Did we
this
say
is
the name?
Machine Gun.
Okay, Machine Gun.
Yeah, it's about
Yeah.
11 odd minutes.
Definitely heard this one before, but
All right.
I think I've heard this full length before, but I'm excited to hear it again.
I had to do a thing called Machine Gun.
just shoot him down. He's about to leave here. Now just shoot him down. He's got to stay here. He ain't going nowhere. He's been shot down to the ground. No way he can survive. No, no.
Yeah. That's what we don't want to hear anymore, right?
No bullets.
Okay.
Holy
okay.
crap.
What'd you think of that, huh?
All right. So, this is one of the first solo virtuosos, you know, because we've been dealing with bands for the most part, right? And no, Jimmy has a band, but this is Jimmy.
Yeah, it's kind of under his name.
Right. So it's the first. It's interesting to see a purely individual's take or influence on Doom, you know, and the history of it all. Because, like I said, we've been dealing with bands, and they've like Iron Butterfly. They had 5 people contribute to that song, and you know everybody got their part. Jimmy's like, no man, Machine Gun. Jimmy. I'm Machine Gun. You know, and it's just him. I know his band is there, and they fucking do a great job, but we're here to listen to Jimmy.
So I think the cool thing about that song, man, is that it was recorded live New Year's Eve, 1969.
Right. The transition.
As the clock counted down out of the 60s and into the 70s.
Nice.
That was
it's over.
Kind of the swan song right there was Machine Gun, that mournful lament of the Vietnam War and all the protests and the riots.
Yeah.
And just the American situation at the time was kind of fucked.
It's got that there's that military-esque kind of funeral style, because you can there's several military style moments to funerals, you know, and that I know that's
the machine gun sound.
Yeah, that's the machine gun style, but it's very marching. It's very like a procession out of the 60s.
Right. Yeah, very much. Yeah, that's
it's
the
over.
60s funeral right there.
Yeah, it's a lot of different feelings in that one kind of drum roll.
So that has a lot of our Doom elements in there, that song. It's got that heavy bluesy repeating riff,
Yeah.
psychedelic approach, long experimentation, solos,
Yes.
and it's heavy, loud blues,
Right.
which is what doom ultimately kind of boils down to, right?
I'm hearing a lot in all these songs
Yeah.
that it's okay to experiment. Do what you got to do. Not only to top the next guy, whether it's turning it up
Yeah.
or playing that lick upside down like Jimmy does, or
Yeah, right.
backwards.
Yeah, backwards with your teeth.
Yeah. It's like,
With
but
the guitar on
everything is fair game. There's no constriction through, I don't know, fake corporate choice. Everything's all different type of styles. All we've heard every 17-minute songs, and there's been some normal, like Led Zeppelin was a normal-esque long or length song, and it's just like everyone had the fucking free reign to bring in whatever new style that they could most competently bring in, and these are some of the best versions of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So somehow all of this gets us to Black Sabbath,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So here's Black
yeah.
Sabbath. These guys in England in this industrial town, and they're playing in blues cover bands, and they love rock and roll. They love what's going on, and
So they're already
they're already kind of
knee
doing
deep in
their
the
thing.
blues. Yeah.
And so the guitar player Tony Iommi worked in a metal shop, and he hurt his hand in a metal press. And
Yeah.
he chopped off. He's left-handed, so he fretted with his right hand.
Right.
He cut off the tips of his 2 fingers here, and he had
The
to
longest two. Yeah.
he cut off the tips of of his forefinger and middle finger.
Yeah.
We call that your index finger. I don't know, whatever. This
Yeah,
is your
I think
index
it's
finger,
index.
middle finger. Anyway, dude worked in a metal shop.
Sliced them off.
Yeah, sliced them off in a metal press in an accident. And he, as a guitar player, he was really upset. He wasn't sure how he was going to be able to play again.
Yeah.
So he fashioned himself some like fingertips.
Were they made of wood
I'm
or
not sure.
metal?
I
He
think
worked
they
in a
were
metal
wood, or they
shop.
were metal, they were
Yeah.
plastic. But
Yeah.
he maybe they were like ivory or something, or
That would make sense.
Um,
Ivory.
yeah, maybe they were like made of bone or something. I'm not real sure, but he fashioned himself up some fingertips.
And they were curved like fingers as
yeah,
well?
they were the same shape
Oh,
as his
shit.
fingers, and
Okay.
so that he could still play guitar,
Wow.
even though he was missing those chunks
Wow.
of flesh there. So to kind of help him do that, he would tune his guitar down a
Right.
half a step or a whole
Right.
step, just so that it was a little more comfortable for him to play. And he
Right.
started playing those minor chords and playing in minor keys, and started kind of experimenting that way, and developed his own unique take on everything that we've been hearing on rock and roll, hard rock, and it became basically the standard of the heavy metal sound.
Yeah.
And because their
Everyone-
approach is so down tempo, slowed down psychedelic, it spawned the whole genre of doom metal right there from Black Sabbath.
Right.
So we've heard a lot of the stuff that put us on this path, but now we get to Black Sabbath and their take on rock and roll, heavy metal, psychedelic blues becomes this
Becomes a standard.
this standard for
Yeah.
doom metal, for what doom metal
Okay.
would become.
So we
Starts
have
right here.
reached the ultimate.
Yeah.
Like this is the
This is it.
cornerstone. This is the what is it? The house, the corner, or the stone that the house is built upon, or whatever.
Yeah, the cornerstone,
Yeah.
It's-
So,
this is our cornerstone of doom right here.
but it makes sense because you mean to tell me there was a blood sacrifice of flesh and bone in order to get the Black Sabbath sound?
That's right, man. There had to be some flesh removed and given to the earth, given to
Yeah.
the gods, in order for the Black Sabbath to get their fucking sound.
And it
dude.
was just fingertips. Imagine if he'd have given his whole. Well, I guess he
yeah,
wouldn't- he
no,
wouldn't play
it
guitar if
wouldn't
it
have
was all
worked. So
hand.
that was as much as he was able to give.
That's all
that was physically
required.
possible.
Yeah, that's wild. Because if he doesn't cut those fingertips off, there might not be Black Sabbath, right? Wouldn't that
Maybe
be fair
not.
to say? because
He'd
he
still
doesn't
be
take
he's-
the steps.
Now he'd still be a blues guitarist and playing rock and roll, but I don't
Yeah.
know if he would have arrived at the sound
Right.
that they became known for.
Because the only reason he got to those 2 points that gave them the sound,
Yeah.
because he lost 2 fingertips.
Yeah, that's the legend anyway.
Oh, okay,
That's the,
okay.
That's the legend
Okay.
that we like to tell to scare little children. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds it. I mean, look, I
It's
thought
a great story.
it's a great story. And I thought you were going to say he just kind of cauterized them and he plays power chords with nubs, and that's why he's so fucking.
No, there's probably some hardcore motherfucker out there that does, but that's just not.
Yeah, he didn't need
What
to do
happened
that. So
here,
he has
no.
actual. Well, does he still wear fashioned?
Yeah,
He's still to this
he
day.
still wears little tips. You can see pictures of him online of
That's
his
crazy.
of his fingers
Nice.
and his little custom fingertips that he's got on
Well,
there.
made by Marshall and
Yeah,
Gibson.
probably, yeah.
Made by Gibson now, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, probably Gibson custom made him some fingertips
As long as
for
you
that
play
special
guitar.
heavy metal tone.
There's
Fuck yeah.
There's an amp in the tip
There's
of
there's,
the.
there's all these players that are trying to get those tips so that they can get that sound.
I don't think that's how that works, right?
No, not at all. That'd just be fucking funny. I gotta get me those tips
Well,
that our
first,
homies got, man. That's how you get that sound.
well, take this knife.
Just chop off your fingertips, put you some thimbles on there in replacement, and then start playing blues. Slow down, down tempo,
as long as they're
minor key.
as long as they're Gibson branded thimbles, then you'll have it. Because he has his own. He plays the SG, right?
Yeah, he's got an SG.
He's got his
yeah.
own signature.
I
I've
think
seen
he's
it
got
a
his
few
own
times.
signature SG
He's got his own
for
signature.
sure.
Because
He had his own amp and everything.
of course, at that point. I mean, and that tells you right there. It's just like, all right, you've created a sound. Once a guitar company is like trying to make you synonymous with that particular your favorite type of guitar.
Yeah.
And they're willing to do that. They're like, okay, you've done something pretty legendary. Yeah. All right. So this is the beginning of what contemporary doom is going to
Yeah.
be. What is it?
We've arrived.
Is it just okay? Let me ask you this:
Okay.
how much does Ozzy play into it, other than this? Because
Well,
the sound
sure.
is the
Yeah,
sound.
Ozzy's
And what's Ozzy's kind of
Ozzy's
contribution?
singing and his performance
Yeah,
kind of set the standard for a rock and roll frontman.
sure.
You know, you get out there and just engage with the crowd and have fun and
Right.
spread the energy and also always be kind of bucking the status quo. You know, being kind of a shock
At the right time.
troop.
I mean, I guess there's
Well,
no right time
yeah,
to do it.
I
It
mean-
seems like all the time, actually.
Yeah, Ozzy
Yeah.
did all kinds of fucking antics
Yeah.
that, certainly crossed the line. And,
And the fact that he survived them
yeah, he's
made him
still,
legendary. Because if he dies, midway through, then it's like, all right,
Yeah.
that one guy, Ozzy Osbourne. But the fact that he made it all the way through makes him legendary. At this
Yeah,
point.
man, the band did, legendary amounts of drugs in their time.
And none of them died.
Yeah, and none of them fucking managed to OD. They're all, I think all the original members are they're all
I
still
think
alive.
they're still for now.
Yeah, they're old and I don't know how they made it, tooting all that coke up their nose like that, but
Because, I mean,
fuck.
with all their success, there is absolutely no way they didn't go to 11 for a good
Oh, straight up.
couple years straight.
Yeah, I mean that's just
And to make it through that
yeah, and
is
to put out all that great music without
on top of that.
on top of that.
Yeah, that is true. Forget surviving to put out fucking good music.
So not only the drugs, but there's also the kind of the love affair with the occult,
So this is the
dark
okay.
themes. Although they're not, they're not like an overtly satanic band. It's more like of a more about mysticism and kind of gothic aesthetics.
Gargoyles and
Yeah, and then
and
kind of
stuff like that.
and
Yeah,
through
yeah.
that imagery, asking a lot of questions about yourself and your place in the world.
sure. Yeah.
And finding your voice and kind of finding love and peace, kind of through that.
Okay.
So that's That's what's interesting about them is that
I don't.
at first glance you might think Black Sabbath, like, no, it's just all a bunch of deviltry.
That's
But
exactly what I was
like
about to
that's
say.
not really. If you really kind of listen to them and look at it, it's like, no, it's no.
Yeah.
There's definitely an embrace of the darkness, but that's because there's something that you find in it about yourself.
Sure.
And then you kind of grow into the light from there. Because
Okay.
the Black Sabbath music would kind of work the range. Some of their albums are really heavy and dark. Some of them are a little more lofty,
Right.
in their tone and in their themes. So it wasn't all just a bunch of head banging and ripping up bats or that kind of thing. Like it's. There
were breaks on the way down to the depths of hell.
Geezer Butler wrote most of the lyrics. The bass player Ozzy actually didn't really write much of the
I
lyrics.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it was kind of his take on the world is what
Right.
Ozzy would sing.
Right.
But Ozzy would kind of like come up with the melodies. He would kind of hum along and jam like that.
Yeah.
And then they would turn that into
Which
a
is
cadence
important.
and phrasing and
Yeah.
lyrics, and so he was definitely part of the process, but actually penning the lyrics, Geezer did
That's
that.
Geezer. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, all right. What are we listening to now?
Okay, so we're gonna listen to the first track off of their first album from 1970,
So this is
where Black Sabbath is
okay.
now fusing all of this stuff that we've been hearing, this
Yes.
heavy blues. They're fusing it all together into this massive sounding monster that became, known as heavy metal.
And you're about to see what we just listened to with Led Zeppelin
Yeah.
take a fucking
It's
gonna
dark
be-
turn.
and
Yeah.
it's the same vein, same neighborhood,
Yeah.
just around the corner.
Yeah, it's
on the
in-
dark
yeah,
turn.
where
It's
the-
like going from Munsters to Adam's
There
Family.
you go.
Is that what you're saying? We're
Yeah.
about to happen?
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Black Sabbath had kind of a heavier
Yeah.
approach to everything.
Adam's Family is like, no,
Yeah.
they look at the monsters and
Yeah,
like, who are those
no,
weirdos?
yeah, a
over
bunch of
there?
jokers over there. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Let's do it.
Here we go.
escape with eyes of fire. Telling people their desire. Satan sitting there, he's smiling. Watches those flames get higher and higher. Oh no, no, please God help me. As in the end, my friend, Satan's coming around the bend. People running 'cause they're scared. You people better go and beware. No, no, please, no.
Okay.
Okay, what do you think of that?
I
That's
think
what
I,
it all comes down to.
I think I misspoke earlier. This is the actual call to the dark side.
Yeah.
It's a literal
Yeah,
cry.
right there. You think you heard it first at Led Zeppelin, and then you hear this, like,
Yeah.
no, this is much darker,
Yeah.
much heavier.
I mean, the way
Yeah.
it opens, it's like we're having a good time over here in the dark. Come join us.
Yeah,
It's fun.
yeah. Yeah, that freaked out a lot of moms and worried.
A lot of dads too, probably.
Well, yeah, everyone's parents are freaking out. Here comes heavy metal. Now what? So the 60s are dead. It's now the 70s, and things are shitty.
Especially in the UK.
Yeah, and so here comes Doom.
Has Thatcher taken over? Thatcher's
No,
not there yet.
not
That's
till,
the
not
80s.
till the 80s,
Yeah, yeah.
That's a whole other thing.
So that's like that's as far back as my.
Yeah.
So things are bad though,
Right.
especially where they're from.
So that's kind of everything that we've been listening to tonight, starting with Howlin' Wolf, and then going all through that journey. That's where we end up with Black Sabbath, the godfathers of doom metal.
So the electrification of the instruments,
Right.
you can hear it.
The massive riff.
And you know what? It's because the Howlin' Wolf is very slow and just very slowly paced, very even. This song was not this like the Led Zeppelin song had some funk to it, had some get up and go to it.
Right.
But this one, even though it's the first song on the record, so that makes sense. It's an intro.
Yeah.
But it summarizes everything that this band wants to be. Perfectly in one opening song.
That's their statement to the world right there. That's why the song's called Black Sabbath, because that's their
self-titled.
That's their anthem.
Mm-hmm.
That's their theme. So yeah, we arrive at this point. 1970, doom metal is born.
Is born with this band.
With this band, this album.
Yeah.
So in following episodes, we're gonna kind of continue on with that journey. So Black Sabbath happens, and then what? Then where does what
the rest of what happens during the rest of the 70s?
In the 70s and in the 80s is when doom metal really becomes its own thing.
Right.
To where you can look back across and say, okay, I see all this stuff. That's what this is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That really starts to take shape in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And it's an interesting kind of reaction to what's happening in more popular forms of heavy metal at the time.
Right.
Where things are getting really faster.
Sure.
And
thrash metal.
Yeah, you get into thrash metal, and then things get into kind of this crazy hair metal thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So the doom of those time spans, those timelines, the doom of those eras is kind of in conflict with some of that approach to heavy music. They're taking it somewhere dark and underground, as they always kind of have, where Doom was born in the darkness.
But everybody in that darkness, in those groups, in those areas, would kind of all agree that Sabbath, we're here because of Sabbath.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's everybody kind of points back to that.
Yeah.
Everyone that
this is my favorite. I grew up listening to his riffs.
Yeah, they can say, I play doom metal. I know what doom metal is. This is my style. Yeah. All goes back to Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And all the kind of proto metal stuff that we've been listening to today, or some of it anyway, it brings us to that point.
And we'll obviously play other songs from Sabbath.
Oh, for
that
sure.
will be
we'll
like, this is what started this vein of of this type of doom, and they've got, you can hear it in all their different songs, all the different veins of doom.
We're gonna listen to a lot of different stuff from their different records from the 70s.
Yeah, and they're different because they had a few different styles that they would play too.
Yeah,
right?
they kind of some of their records all sounded a little different.
Yeah.
And I think different people like different ones because of the different approaches that they take. So that could be really kind of fun to look into that.
Exactly.
But we're going to get into kind of the big four: Saint Vitus, Pentagram, Trouble, and Candlemass. Not necessarily in that order. And so we're going to listen to some of that, and then kind of go into the 90s and kind of go back to the UK for the 90s for a bit with the birth of Electric Wizard.
Yeah.
And then we come back here and listen to Sleep. And then kind of take it from there. So we'll come back in different episodes and revisit different sections of time.
Yeah.
In later episodes, later podcasts.
Cool. All right.
Keep it going.
So there you go. I mean, this is our second episode.
Yeah.
So
episode
and
two.
this is
Here it is.
not every episode's going to be like the professor just said. It's not going to be a historical breakdown, but we're going to throw those in every now and then. But next episode we could spend an hour on Panamanian doom or Chilean, heavy metal.
Oh yeah, we can spend episodes talking about regions and there's so much amazing stuff going on in South America. And fucking Sweden always has all this amazing music. We can spend.
These pockets are in every country.
Absolutely.
Right. Every country has heavy metal.
Doom
fans.
is worldwide, man. There's doom in Malaysia. There's doom in South Africa.
Yeah.
There's fucking doom everywhere, man.
Yeah. So that's why we want to do this show, because we want to. We have the label to get this music out there, but now we want to talk about all these different pockets of it. You can't do that you can't put out all the records. So
no,
we can talk about them at least.
Talk about them.
Yeah.
We can let other people hear about them.
All right. Well. Okay. Cool. So till next time then.
All right.
All right. Cool. All right. Peace.
All right. Thank you. Good night.